Hello, Star Trek fans, and welcome to the Rebinge Deep Space Nine podcast. My name is Kim.
And my name is James.
And we're watching Star Trek Deep Space Nine from the beginning, one episode at a time. Welcome back to the podcast. Today we are on Season 6, Episode 16, Change of Heart. This episode aired March 4th, 1998. Before we talk about this one, anything to say about last week's episode, Honor Among Thieves?
No, it was okay.
Yeah, I think that was our summary.
I think this is another one of those Whiplash episodes.
Whiplash from Donnie Brasco to this?
Yes.
It's definitely different, that's for sure.
Oh, agreed.
Well, you've got the notes this week, so whenever you're ready.
Okay, here we go. We start on the station with Jadzia playing Tongo with Quark and his motley bunch of Ferengi, and Worf and Miles are watching from above. Worf tells Miles she is playing a very deep game and her strategy will become apparent. Miles replies, "You have no idea how this game is played." Worf says, "No, but he's certain she will defeat the Ferengi."
Yeah.
And they make a bet of a bottle of scotch versus a bottle of blood wine that she'll win. A risky bet, as Miles points out, Quark has won 206 games in a row.
He must be cheating. He's won that many in a row.
I also wonder if the other Ferengi are all actually bad Tongo players.
Or they let the boss win.
One of the rules of acquisition, suck up to the boss.
Right.
Good way of doing it.
Could be that.
Well, Jadzia appears to have a great hand, and Quark reveals he has a full consortium, and he wins. So Miles wins his bottle of scotch.
Whiskey. Oh yeah, he did ask for scotch.
I'm wondering here if Jadzia is actually falling into debt. Spurred by the memories of Curzon, is she taking on some of those characteristics? I'm expecting next she's going to be drinking heavily.
I have no idea if that's what's going on, obviously, because I don't know what's coming. But it did seem like this whole episode was setting us up for something else. So maybe. This was the first time that I thought the Worf and Miles interaction made sense to me, because they've had some really strange interactions on this show.
Oh, yeah.
But I thought this was pretty good between the two of them.
Oh, definitely.
Like when they got into the fight over the Union, that never made any sense to me, but this made sense.
I like Worf's confidence in his wife.
Yeah, for sure.
Possibly overconfidence.
Yeah, definitely.
We now go to Dax and Worf's quarters, which we see aren't on the Defiant.
Yeah, I did notice that.
And Worf is praying in front of a small shrine with what I assume is a small statue of Kahless in there. And he has a whole little ritual where he lights a candle and opens the doors. Have we seen this on TNG?
No, I don't remember seeing this particular thing. In fact, when Jadzia looks in the mirror and she sees the little Klingon, I thought there was some other Klingon in the room.
Oh. Well, the purpose of this whole scene seems to be just to show that Dax and Worf are very much in love, and they kiss and cuddle, and everybody's happy, basically.
There's a lot of that in this episode. Like, they're trying to establish that they have a strong relationship, they have routines that they do together, and also maybe to show us that they aren't living on the Defiant.
That was really good. I was pretty sure Worf was going to be living in the van.
Yeah.
Next morning, Kira calls them to a briefing. Starfleet Intelligence has an important Cardassian operative who has requested an emergency in-person meeting with Starfleet. But with the Defiant away and most of the runabouts gone, Worf and Jadzia are volunteered for the mission.
So did we cover here that Sisko was gone on the Defiant? Because why isn't Sisko giving him this message?
I assumed Sisko was gone on the Defiant as well.
Yeah.
I don't remember her specifically saying that.
And why even would they contact her with Starfleet Intelligence? Why wouldn't they go to Worf?
Well, she is the second in command. And
on the station.
On the station, yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah, I was just wondering if they needed a reason to get Kira into the scene.
Yeah, there were some things about this scene which I thought were kind of odd. I didn't even think of why is Kira giving Starfleet orders in this situation, which is a little interesting. But the other point is, why would Dax and Worf be the ones volunteered to go on this meeting? Worf is a senior officer. He could run the station. Why wouldn't Kira be the person you would want to go on a mission like this? She has experience in the Badlands. She has experience with clandestine ops, which ultimately this is what this is. Why wouldn't you either go with Kira Dax, Kira Worf? I mean, we know what it would be because of the story.
Yeah.
But I thought from a tactical perspective, those two would be the better choice. Kira with either of them?
Yeah, I could see that Kira would make sense unless with this being a Starfleet intelligence operation again, and she's not in Starfleet, but then I don't think they would have told her about it. That's sort of where it was falling apart for me, that if she was going to be made aware, then why wouldn't she be the one to go on the mission? And why wouldn't you send her instead of your science officer, who is Dax?
Right.
So, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, you'd be sending 2 combat vets, Kira Worf, to go on this mission with a great experience. Yeah.
Or Miles. I mean, maybe they're giving Miles a break since he didn't do great on the last intelligence mission. And they're like, yeah, we're all good with Miles.
Yeah.
But this was almost like they forced the situation to happen with these two, and it didn't necessarily fit. Yeah.
Right. I am going to bring up the Scotch whiskey thing. Why doesn't Miles like Irish whiskey?
And maybe Miles thought it was funny, or maybe the actor thought it was funny.
Yeah, you should be sticking for Irish whiskeys, cultural heritage and all that.
Everybody likes what they like. You like that whiskey from Colorado. You're not from Colorado.
That is correct. On the runabout, Dax and Worf are discussing where they want to go on their honeymoon. And of course, Worf wants to go on some hiking trip through hell.
Yeah.
Dax has to explain to Worf that she does not want to spend any time climbing, hiking, sweating, bleeding, or suffering in any way. When he finally asks her what she wants, she says, room service. And I immediately strangely thought of you, Kim.
Yeah, I also didn't want to spend my honeymoon, or really any trip, bleeding or suffering. I mean, what's the point? Hiking, maybe, but I mean, come on.
Not that I'm into suffering on any kind of vacation either.
No, although I don't want to go to Risa either. So I'm with Worf on that one.
Well, they kind of bicker for a little while.
Really, they were just sort of picking on each other and then sort of laughing about it. So I didn't think this was too bad. It's kind of cute. And at the end of the scene, Worf was even smiling, which is just something we've only seen 3 or 4 times in all of the scenes that we've seen with Worf.
Well, he has a great sense of humor. People on the Enterprise thought he was very funny.
Oh, that was funny. When she's like, that must have been a dull ship. And also the people on the Enterprise might have been laughing at you, not with you. But...
Oh, that would be really mean.
Yeah, well, yeah. That's how cliques are. They're mean.
Back on the station, Miles is supposed to be joining Julian in a spy adventure. Totally not James Bond.
Right.
And Julian finds that Miles is learning to play Tongo, because basically he wants to beat Quark at it. And he manages to rope Julian into helping.
The best part of the scene was when Julian is just like, I don't want to do this. I don't even know how to play the game. And Miles shows him the pad with the rules, and he looks at it for a second and goes, yeah, okay, I got it.
It's that genetic engineering.
Yeah.
On the Shenandoah, which is the runabout they took, they get a transmission from the Cardassian, Lazarin.
The jerky Cardassian.
He claims to know where all the founders in the Alpha Quadrant are, but in exchange they need to get him out because the Dominion is closing in on him. He's going to be on a planet within Dominion-controlled space, and they have 3 days to be there and collect him. He cannot wait and needs to know if they'll go. Dax nods at Worf and they agree. And in this scene, he's displaying some of his natural Cardassian xenophobia and says, how far I've fallen, risking my life on the word of a Klingon.
Well, as it turned out, he wasn't wrong. Yeah, this guy's a real gem.
Back to Miles and Julian, and we discover that Miles isn't actually very good at Tongo. And after 15 seconds, Julian appears to be beating him.
That would be me. I'm terrible at card games, especially when they're complicated. I just am like, ugh.
Miles seems slightly obsessed with the challenge of beating Quark because, as he says, somebody has to. And he also goes on to tell Julian that he really needs something to do because he's missing Keiko. I really like that. Miles and Keiko do actually seem to be getting on better when they're apart.
Yeah.
Miles realizes that he needs Julian to play Quark. Julian is initially resistant, and Miles gives him a whole string of reasons that Julian brushes off until he gets to do it for the look on Quark's face when he's beaten by a lowly human. And then Julian's in.
I do think it's a lot to ask of someone to study a game and become better at it than someone who's probably been playing it their entire life.
Right.
So it would make sense that maybe he was overreaching, that he was going to suddenly be good at such a complicated game.
At least with Julian, he has the advantage that the genetic engineering makes him good at that kind of thing, of picking things up very quickly. And not having to hide it, he can just jump straight in with both feet.
Miles missed an opportunity here. I was thinking about how the other day when I was going to watch Wrath of Khan, and I went back and watched the Space Seed original series episode before I watched it. And there's a scene where Kirk says something about get that historian officer and she can finally do something for a change. Something really horrible and insulting. Miles missed the opportunity here to be like, oh, finally, we can do something useful with your genetic engineering.
Oh, that would be mean.
Considering how much Miles insulted him a few episodes ago in statistical probabilities.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, it would have been fair.
Miles could have got a burn in there.
Never missed the chance for a good burn.
Advice to live your life by there.
That's right.
So the guy Lazarin has given them information how they can safely navigate to the planet. So Dax and Worf have to fly through an asteroid field to get there. We get some great space effects of them flying through this asteroid field, and I really like that. It was pretty good. And the effects, again, hold up over time. I think this still looks really good.
Yeah.
Though I will say Dax seemed a little reckless flying through it at speed, considering the importance of this mission. And I was wondering if she was relying on Tarius's piloting skills. Can you use the skills of your previous hosts to help you today?
Or were they simply establishing that these two are not being as focused and professional as they should be?
Oh.
Because they're trying to show off with each other or just be cute with each other rather than just paying attention to the tasks at hand.
I did not think of that. That's a really good point. The other side of it is, remember, Tarius was a little overconfident and got himself killed flying an unsafe shuttle.
Yeah.
It might also work out badly if you're relying on the skills or memories of a previous host.
Yeah. The Trill are not always good at being humble and just using the skills that they have. They like to point out how they've got 7 years of experience and blah, blah, blah.
Well, after 7 lifetimes.
Exactly. Yeah, I said 7 years. I meant 7 lifetimes, obviously. You knew what I meant.
Yes. They arrive at the planet and find the base. To be safe, they have to land 20 kilometers away from the rendezvous. So they have 10 kilometers of jungle a day to cover, and they have to avoid Jem'Hadar patrols and a sensor grid.
And as it turns out, lizards and snakes.
Yes.
Other jungle things.
I'm pretty sure it was one lizard. They just used it twice.
Yeah, I think it was one lizard.
Jadzia hacks the Dominion sensor grid to mask their life signs. And Worf tells Jadzia, I look forward to walking through the jungle with a map and no idea of what lies ahead. And Dax replies, you probably are.
Mm-hmm.
Worf is 100% serious here.
Yes.
This is almost like a honeymoon for him.
It was like at the beginning of whatever that phony bachelor party thing was called at the wedding when Martog was all excited about it.
Yes.
He was ready for the trials.
Exactly. Back to the station, and initially Quark does not want to allow Julian to join the Tongo game, but relents when he discovers they have money, so Julian is in.
And also, this was another one of those examples of where there's a bunch of Ferengi in the scene, but none of them have lines. They all just nod.
Yes.
We don't want to have to pay him too much.
They do a quick cut showing that only Julian and Quark are left in the game, and they start bantering a little. Quark brings up Dax and her Tongo playing, and then her marriage to Mr. Boring, telling Julian, I only gave it 2 months. Julian replies, I only gave it a month.
Way to be supportive.
Yes.
What great friends you are.
Then Quark continues talking about Dax, saying about, even at a bad day at the bar, her smile would make everything seem not so bad. I thought it was interesting. Quark was being surprisingly strategic.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that Bashir still had this unhealthy obsession with Jadzia.
Yeah.
And playing to it.
Right.
Trying to keep him off balance. Well, it works. Julian seems completely distracted by this. And Miles starts telling him to focus. Quark, meanwhile, just continues, saying, she's out of reach because we let her go.
Aye.
Finally saying, what if in 50 years from now, we look back and say, what a fool I was. I hate to break it to you guys, but she said no. She wasn't interested.
Yeah.
I think you should take that at face value. Otherwise, you're bordering on some kind of dangerous obsessive stalker.
Yeah, it really is stuck in such an old school way of looking at things when he says that line, now she's married and out of reach. It's like, no, she was out of reach because she said no. That's where the real out of reach happened.
Yes.
But I don't blame Quark for this. He was clearly doing it to get under Julian's skin. And it worked.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. It was annoying that they had to flash back to season 1. Every time they bring this up, it's just like, come on. We can be so much better than this.
Quark's strategy continues to work, and Bashir is now completely distracted. When Quark finally calls confront, which means put all your cards down, Julian reveals a hand of a full consortium. However, Quark counters with full monopoly and wins the game. I did like here because in the background, all those little Ferengis, you hear them start doing their little laughing. I kind of like that. It was a nice touch.
Must not count as a line.
Oh yeah, you don't get paid for that.
No, you don't get paid for laughing.
Bashir asks Quark, did you mean that? Dax being my one last chance for true happiness. Eye roll. Seriously, dude. Move on.
I just rolled my eyes when you said it. It was no chance for happiness. She wasn't interested.
Yes.
Find someone else who is interested, and then you can both be happy.
Like the ensign in the alternative timeline they had a bunch of kids together with?
Yeah, what's she doing?
She was clearly interested in him.
Exactly. I begrudge no one when both parties are interested.
Exactly. There is a nice touch here. When Quark's leaving the table, he walks past Miles and he's holding the bowl of all the latinum and like shakes it at him. That made me laugh.
Like, nice try.
Yes. Miles has in the past picked on Quark. So the occasional ability for Quark to actually pick on Miles must be wonderful payback for him.
Oh, yeah. Like in the episode where they shrunk the Honey, I Shrunk Your Bridge officers at the end, remember when Odo and Quark were like, you do look a little shorter.
Yes. And at the end of the scene, Julian finally figures out all that stuff about Dax was supposed to distract him. So he pretty much completely lost the plot there.
Yeah.
Which I guess was Quark's point.
He was outsmarted by a Ferengi.
Back to Worf and Jadzia, and we get a montage of them traversing the jungle, including Dax getting a wound on her leg, the iguana getting its second guest appearance, and a snake.
A big yellow snake.
They set up camp for the night, and Worf tells a story about how as a child on the camping trip in the mountains, he listened to the wolves howling for hours, and he wanted to rip off his clothes and run into the night, live in the forest and become something wild. I really like that. I think...
You did?
Yes, I think Worf really embraces the concept of the wild Klingons.
I guess it just sounded funny to me that he wanted to rip off his clothes like he was going to live like an animal. Is there honor in that? I don't know. It just seemed strange, but sure.
I think the point was he felt like he wanted to embrace the wild side of Klingons. The howling animals that they're listening to start moving away, and Worf realizes it's because something is coming, and it's close. Although, this was also cool because when they were listening to them, Worf was giving quite precise distances
Yes.
to how far away they were. Like, 300 yards over there and 500 yards over there.
Maybe that's part of being a wild Klingon.
Could be.
And also, he said meters, not yards.
Oh my gosh, I used the wrong units.
Yes, you did.
Star Trek, we know, is metric.
Usually.
Jadzia and Worf crouch behind a fallen tree with their phaser rifles ready, and we see it's a patrol of 3 Jem'Hadar. They shoot 2 of them, and Worf throws his mek'leth, taking out the last one. But one of the Jem'Hadar managed to get a shot off, and Jadzia is hit. Fortunately, it did not hit any vital organs, but in the same way as on the ship, the Dominion disruptors have an anticoagulant, so they can't stop the bleeding.
Ugh, that's just mean.
This is one of those things where I feel the sci-fi is lacking.
Yeah.
Because wouldn't Starfleet, being at war, have figured out by this point some method of dealing with this?
Yes.
This is the future.
Yeah.
Today, there are actual products, one of which is going apparently for reading about it, FDA approval, which is a wound dressing like something out of sci-fi movies. That literally they would spray into the hole and is like a gel and stops the bleeding. It's like the thing from the Judge Dredd movie, the second one, where he fills a gunshot wound with foam to stop the bleeding. This, I thought, was a miss of sci-fi. In the future, wouldn't you have wound dressing? And it's not like the ship with Munez, where they didn't have a med kit.
Yep. No, he has a med kit here.
Yeah, they're prepared for this mission and should have the necessary supplies. I understand why for a story standpoint, but...
No, I agree 100%. That we've been aware of this anticoagulant thing for a very long time. And here we know we're going into Dominion space, and we know that we have the potential to come into contact with Jem'Hadar, and we know of this threat. So, yeah, why would we not be prepared for it? I completely agree.
Well, of course, the injured Jadzia insists they continue. And I figure she's got 15 minutes before she bleeds out.
This whole thing was tough to watch because they start to change her makeup and she starts to go grayer and grayer and she looks worse and worse. And it was It was hard to watch.
The next morning, we find they've only made it 1/3 of the way. Dax tries to make light of the situation as Worf gives her more blood plasma, saying, "No thank you, she's all full," but he also notes her blood pressure has dropped another 20%. Worf tells her, "This is no joking matter, you're seriously injured and we have a great deal of terrain to cover. Plus, let's not forget, you also have to come back with this severely injured person."
Yeah.
Who's getting progressively worse all the time.
Yeah, we didn't get a real reading on the exact distances at this point, because I think he said he only had, towards the end, he only had a couple of kilometers left to go.
Yeah.
But could they have doubled back, left her in the runabout, and then Worf just took off on foot, running?
Well, Worf said they're 1/3 of the way there, so that means they've gone 6 kilometers, well, 6 and a bit kilometers. So with Dax getting worse, he should take her back to the shuttle.
Take her back.
And then go.
Mm-hmm.
I think the approach they're taking is the worst possible and wouldn't make any sense from an operational standpoint.
No, it was a big mistake.
Yeah.
Or even leave her in the spot where she was injured.
Yeah.
Leave her with the med kit and off you go and you come back and get her.
Oh, you tell her to start going back.
No, I agree. It seemed a little off. We were trying to force us into a particular situation in order to show something in the story. And so I don't think it's uncommon that we would maybe make these mistakes with the writing.
Worf, of course, is blaming himself for this, saying he let his guard down and he allowed his wife to be injured. Worf is the worst at second-guessing himself.
Yes.
He always seems to be coming back to, oh, it's my fault.
Yeah.
I did something wrong. If I'd done this, I never really thought of Worf as a if-only kind of person. But they seem to be bringing this out in him of he's always looking for his own mistakes in kind of events that were sort of out of his control.
Well, he has the responsibility strength in his top 5. So he's going to feel responsible for everything.
Yeah.
Because, we saw that on the episode where the Jem'Hadar took over the Defiant, right? He was just like, oh, I should have known better. That's his default.
Yeah.
And really, as a leadership strength, it is good to always look at what you could have done better.
Yeah.
And to not blame everybody else.
That's a Cardassian trait.
Yes, but also don't waste time. At this point, you can look at this later and complain. Right now, you have to find a solution.
I think really that's my point. Now isn't the time to start dissecting everything you do as being wrong. That's for the after-action analysis.
That's for the postmortem,
Yeah. Jadzia again insists on continuing as she just starts getting weaker and weaker as they progress.
Yeah.
Finally, she can't go on and tells Worf he must continue without her.
The second time I watched this to do the notes,
Yeah.
I couldn't watch all of this part. It was just too hard. I had to fast forward through some of it. First of all, just how bad she was looking.
Oh, yeah.
As I said earlier, but even some of this conversation I found really tough to watch.
Before he leaves, she tells Worf, it's been a great 2 months, hasn't it?
No.
Worf starts to reply, but she says, just kiss me and go. And like you say, the makeup here is great. She looks just terrible. Worf is now moving rapidly through the jungle, and we start to hear a heartbeat slowly getting louder. When he enters a clearing, it's very loud, and he looks behind him and then throws his mek'leth into a tree. We now see a passed-out Jadzia, and Worf checks for a pulse, and then starts carrying her on his back through the jungle. Back to DS9 for probably the best acted scene of the whole episode. I have a lot of notes here.
Okay.
I think I wrote down all the dialogue. It was so great and so well delivered.
Oh, that's my trick. When it's Kai Wynn or...
Yes. Sisko comes in and Worf tells him that Dax is in surgery, but Julian is sure she'll be fine. Sisko tells him that Lazarin is dead. He was killed trying to re-enter the base, and he asks Worf, could you have made it to the rendezvous? Worf answers, yes. And Sisko asks, are you aware the information could have saved millions of lives? Worf replies, yes. Straight into overanalysis. I'm going to go with allegedly. This guy was trying to get out, so he wasn't going to be able to provide any up-to-date or useful information. Plus, he said they were closing in on him. How do we know anything he said wasn't a lie? If you're desperate to get out, wouldn't you make something up? Like, oh, I know where all the founders are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I know how to win the war. You just have to get me out.
Yeah.
And when they get him out, he goes, oh, no, well, maybe I didn't. Because it'd be too late by then. You've already got him out.
Yeah. I agree. I think he could have been a little more forthcoming in the earlier conversation.
Yes.
Just to prove that he had something.
Right.
Yeah.
Also, Worf is a Klingon. Of course he's going to say, yes, I could have made it.
Right.
No, I would have failed the mission no matter what. Worf is no way he's going to say that.
Yep.
An equal likely outcome is, yes, I would have made it 400 meters more, because we use metric in Starfleet.
Right.
And then I would stood on a Jem'Hadar anti-personnel mine. Or I would run into an entire squad of shrouded Jem'Hadar. The answers here are all the at best.
Mm-hmm.
When the reality, I think, is he probably could have made it. This guy probably had the information. I think they're taking all of this on face value.
Yeah.
I don't know if really you would do in that situation, but I guess for the story you have to. I guess for Starfleet intelligence they might.
Yeah, I was thinking really Worf could have answered these questions very differently. Like he certainly could have said, well, possibly, but being on my own in the jungle was much more dangerous. And so his answer could have been maybe, or I had the chance to, or something, or he could have just lied. But that's not very Klingon honorable. So he wasn't going to.
And I don't think you would have had to lie there. I think an honest answer to that could have been, I might have. It may have been possible.
Except to your point, that's not what the Klingon would say.
Yeah.
The Klingon is going to believe that he could have made it.
When we are victorious, they will sing songs in my honor. That kind of attitude.
Yes.
Sisko asks him what happened. Worf recounts the story of the first 2 Klingon hearts, and nothing could stand against them, not even the gods. He said he never really understood it until he was standing in the jungle with his heart pounding in his chest, and he found that even he could not stand against his own heart. I had to go back, and it did not matter what Starfleet thought or the consequences. She was my wife. I could not leave her. Beautifully portrayed by Michael Dorn here.
Yep. Yeah, I like the callback quite a bit to the wedding.
Yes.
Because I think a lot of times words that are said in ceremonies are just words, and they don't necessarily have meaning, but they were meaningful to Worf, and we knew that before the ceremony, and now we know it after as well. And it's not just a matter of, I didn't quite like the wording with what he said. It wasn't just a matter of she's my wife.
Yeah.
It was, she's the other half of my heart now. That was the point of the wedding.
Yes.
And together, now we are one strong heart. You can't just separate them now. I thought that was pretty good, that little callback.
I thought that was really good.
Yeah.
You summed it up there with sometimes things are just words.
Yeah.
Worf looked at that as a story. Yeah, Worf embraces his culture and the Klingonness of things, but he still saw it as a story. And then when he experiences it, he suddenly realizes, oh, it isn't a story. It is real.
Right. Yes. There is that mystical part of it that Worf wants to believe in.
Yes.
And maybe that, too, we can tie back to the beginning of this episode when he was having the little prayer to the little action figure of Kahless.
Yeah.
That, again, there's a mystical side of it that he strongly believes in. And he was having his moment there in the jungle. And there are numerous reasons why that could have happened. It was panic, basically. And it could have just been adrenaline causing his heart to beat in his ears. But that's not what he's going to believe in that moment. He's definitely going to believe the spiritual story.
Well, I like the spiritual story for it.
Me too.
Also, it ties back to the Sword of Kahless. Worf has had this kind of spiritual experience in the past. Look what happened to him when he held the sword.
Yeah, Worf's all in with this story.
Absolutely. Sisko replies, as your captain, it is my duty to inform you that you made the wrong choice.
Ugh.
Starfleet won't press charges because they don't want to reveal anything of their intelligence operation. But it will go into his service record, and after this, he probably won't be offered a command of his own. So let's forget everything that Worf's done in the past, including saving Earth twice from the Borg, but that doesn't matter.
Yeah, because, this guy might have had nothing. He just wanted to defect.
Exactly. Sisko tells him he has issued new orders. Worf and Jadzia won't be assigned to any new missions together. I think keeping married couples from being on missions together is just actually good operational practice, to be honest.
Yeah, especially when it's just the two of them, yes.
Before he leaves, Sisko says, one last thing. As a man who had a wife, if it had been Jennifer lying there in that clearing, I wouldn't have left her either. And he leaves. Fantastic scene played by 2 actors who really get their characters. And I think Avery really made that seem real.
Yeah, this is the best scene of the whole episode for sure.
Yeah.
And I also feel like the entire episode was sort of contrived to get to this scene.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, but I definitely liked the way Sisko said that.
In the infirmary, Worf is sitting by Jadzia, who comes round and says, Hey, I know you. He tells her he did not make the rendezvous, and Lazarin is dead. She asks, are you in trouble? Worf replies, I've been in trouble before. Did you get the Inglourious Bastards?
Yeah, been chewed out before.
Yes. Dax says she's sorry. She should have kept going. She knows how much his career means to him. Worf tells her she comes first, before career, before duty, before anything. I do not regret what I did, and I would do it again.
Nice.
Jadzia says she doesn't know what to say, and Worf replies, you could say thank you for saving my life, and I do the same thing for you.
That's not really the way Dax operates.
Dax replies, well, I'd have to think about that. My career is very important to me, you know.
Oh, that was funny.
Yes. She tells him she loves him, and he tells her he loves her, and they kiss. Fade out.
The end. Well, what over-analysis do you have?
We have a few things here.
Okay.
First one. Do you think Lazarin had the info? Yes or no?
I think he had info. Whether or not he had really accurate info, who's to say?
Yeah.
Because I don't think the founders are sharing that information. Like, if how many of them are in the Alpha Quadrant.
Yeah.
He might know whatever they told the Cardassians, but I don't know that he had life or death info.
Okay. I got the feeling he didn't. I think he was just trying to get out and save his own skin.
Yeah.
I think he probably, like you said, he didn't have anything necessarily worthwhile of like,
right.
Oh, there's one.
And it's the founder woman, the scary changeling woman.
Yeah. Plus, how would you know if it was accurate?
Why would they tell him? Yeah, he doesn't.
Yeah. We know what they really think of the Cardassians.
He might have info on, like, the Ketracel White or something like that,
Yeah.
but he's not going to have founder info.
Right.
The Vorta don't even have the founder info. Forget it. Yeah.
Right. Next thing. Family over duty. This is something I've always wondered about, including TNG. They have families on the ship. Isn't it always a risk that if you have family, loved ones, you would value them over your mission, your crewmates, and even Starfleet? So having couples, families, or whatever together in these situations could potentially be dangerous for everyone, including the people involved.
I do think to a large degree they were trying to show that the next gen was different from the original series.
Yeah.
And they weren't on these dangerous military missions.
Mm-hmm.
They were an exploratory ship, and it was almost like they were just trying to set it apart.
Yeah.
The trouble is, if you just try to make it like it's a cruise, it's not the show anybody's come here to watch.
Yeah.
So there were already conflicts in the thing that they were trying to do because, of course, family is going to come first. Sure, there are going to be situations where it isn't and where someone is going to be so devoted to duty that they're going to put the mission first.
Yeah.
But that's going to be far fewer times than the people who will protect their children, protect their spouse. So I feel like it's because they were trying to avoid it being military.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if they avoided that completely and there was never any danger, then what's the show about?
Yeah. I feel almost the purpose of this episode is to show that even a Klingon who is obsessed with duty and honor is ultimately going to make the choice for his loved ones.
Yeah. You know, it's funny is just today I saw on Twitter somebody put together some clips with the Love Boat theme song. And they put some clips from Next Gen to it. And since this is what you would have, it would just be the Love Boat in space.
I don't think that would have the same appeal.
Nobody's watching that. I do think if you're going to allow people to serve together with their family members, then you're going to have to find a way to deal with this sort of thing because it's going to happen all the time.
Oh, completely. Well, remember the episode with Deanna, where she has to order the hollow Geordie to go and fix engineering, which will kill him.
Yeah.
And that was the thing she had so much trouble with.
Mm-hmm.
If that's a loved one.
Yeah. It's almost silly to think that it would work any differently. I know you and I have talked about this before. I even struggle with people who have very dangerous jobs. I struggle with them having families because I don't think it's fair to the family.
Yeah.
I also get you should be able to have a family if you want a family. So I'm not, I wouldn't say people shouldn't do it, but this is just like another level of that.
Agreed. Next thing. So I wonder what the procedure is for the Jem'Hadar using the Shroud ability. That patrol, if you had the ability to basically go invisible.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, if you were investigating going, oh, there's something funny going on over there, Okay, I'm going to shroud and then walk into the jungle and see what's going on.
Well, I was wondering if, because we've sort of touched on this before, when they were running out of the Ketracel White, they were unable to do it. And we're not sure here if we have a shortage of it, but they might have to ration it a bit when they're in some of these remote locations. So if it takes more to shroud, maybe you don't unless you absolutely have to.
That's exactly my next point here. Are they running low? And this requires a lot of Ketracel White, so they don't shroud unless they absolutely have to, or maybe they even don't.
I think so. This is a little headcanon that we're telling ourselves, but I think that makes sense.
The other alternative is maybe the Jem'Hadar don't have a lot of initiative. It's not programmed into them. So unless the first tells this little group of 3, if you see something, shroud and then investigate, they wouldn't think of it themselves.
Maybe.
They wouldn't go, oh, we should turn the shroud on.
These could also be alphas that are overconfident.
Oh.
They're not really super soldiers. No one will be able to get away from us.
Okay. That's also a good one.
Yeah.
Next thing, and this is possibly the most important one. Body armor, people. Body armor.
Yeah.
The security officers in the motion picture had body armor. The second one is, I believe, the Search for Spock, body armor. And of course, Discovery, which features, I believe, 2 different types of body armor.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy that they're going into a combat situation in a jungle in polyester outfits with little stupid boots. I mean,
yes,
I know we're supposed to think that these uniforms have some other technology that we don't know about, but it even looks dumb.
Yeah.
Yes, some kind of tactical suits would be wise in this situation.
Plus, they'd look awesome. I mean, it would be a really good cosplay thing as well for the fans.
I don't feel today if you were making the same story that they'd be going out in those uniforms. Or if it was part of a movie, you'd be doing something with the costume.
Right. Yeah, and we see that, I think, with Discovery, where it's almost like the sort of the uniform styles and the wearing of body armor is sort of caught up with what the modern military do.
Yeah. Yeah, in the same way that we were talking earlier, that at this point in the war, they would be able to combat that anticoagulant thing.
Yeah.
They would also be treating this like a military action, and there would be upgrades to their uniforms.
Oh, agreed. By the way, all the spellings of armor in my notes are the British way, with the U.
With the U? Okay.
Okay, possibly my last point. Wouldn't this guy be hanging around for a few days?
Yeah, why did he try to go back?
Yeah. Worf takes Jadzia back when she was first hit.
Yeah.
Has this guy got somewhere else he needs to be?
Well, he said they wouldn't notice he was gone for 2 days, so maybe he was trying to slip in before the end of that window, but that doesn't make any sense.
If they go looking for him, does it really matter? He's already, on the run.
Well, I guess he had nowhere else to go once he's out in the jungle. He's just going to die in the jungle. So.
Well, maybe he could have hung out there a few days longer while Worf came back to find him.
Maybe he got bit by a snake.
Oh, lizard ate him.
He ran out of food. I don't know.
Yeah.
He was probably not prepared.
And if he knows there's sensor grids, why would you make the rendezvous point so close? Wouldn't you make the rendezvous point 20 kilometers away and say...
As far away.
Yeah, I'm going to be here.
Yeah. I think they were trying to accomplish a lot in this short story.
Oh, agreed.
Yeah.
But then again, maybe the guy was panicking as well.
Maybe.
Maybe he sounded like they were closing in on him, and maybe he wasn't thinking straight and was just wanting to get out.
Yeah.
And my final point, which kind of leads on from this, should Jadzia and Worf have agreed to do this and not bring in professionals?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
But what do I know about this kind of a mission? I mean, they are professionals, so I don't know.
Well, I was thinking more like maybe some kind of tactical group from Starfleet Intelligence to actually come and do the extraction, somebody with experience of it.
Yeah, you're running through the jungle.
I was wondering whether there was a deliberate idea here of showing Dax and Worf's overconfidence, that the two of them together, that instead of saying, okay, we don't actually know how to do this safely, I'm going to call Starfleet and say, look, this is what's happening. The responsibility for doing this goes up to the people who are skilled at it. So I was wondering whether maybe this was showing the overconfidence of the two of them, which you brought up in the asteroid field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just another example of it, I guess. Maybe that's the bad side of the two hearts together.
Oh.
There's always a downside.
We can kill gods.
Turns out you can't.
Yeah. And that, I think, wraps up my overanalysis.
Okay. I don't really have any overanalysis except to ask the question of, is Worf to blame for what happened as he was beating himself up about it. And I mean this when he's still on the planet and he tells Jadzia that it's his fault. Is he really to blame?
I'm going to say maybe he was distracted, but he picked up on the animals pretty quickly. And could he have picked up the Jem'Hadar if they were getting close? Worf likes to take the blame for things, or likes to think he could have done better, even if it was necessarily impossible.
But I do take the point that he maybe wasn't acting the way he would have if it had been Sisko with him, for example. He may have been paying more attention because in that scene, Dax is bringing him a blanket because she knows he's cold and they're just sort of laughing about something. And that's probably not what would have happened if it had been Sisko or Miles or somebody else with him. They probably both would have been more diligent. On the one hand, I did think that Dax was pretty much acting like she always does. She's always pretty sarcastic and cracking jokes. But even Sisko tells her occasionally to knock it off, right? And to be more professional.
Oh, yeah.
It happened in that episode, The Ship, for sure.
Yeah.
But Worf doesn't do that here. He doesn't really take command of the operation, which he probably should. I assume he outranks her here. They don't do that, and they're almost like treating it like they're just out on a day trip.
Oh, that ties back to the overconfidence, yeah.
Yes, and if he's the one with the higher rank, I would argue maybe he is to blame.
Oh.
And maybe he should be looking at himself like, gosh, we weren't prepared. I should have said no. We should have gone back and got somebody else. And I should have been more diligent and more aware of my surroundings. I shouldn't have got distracted by my wife who was here. All of those things, rather than jumping all the way to the end and saying he shouldn't have gone back to save his wife.
That's a good point.
If you even erase that part, there are many things before that he probably should have done better.
That's a good point. I like that. You know, maybe that's also a problem with the Klingon character. You ask them to do this almost impossible mission.
Yeah.
And of course, their reaction is going to be, I can do it.
Absolutely.
Totally, yeah. Maybe that's what Worf has to learn on the command track. That the answer to everything can't be, I can do it. We will be victorious.
Yeah.
Temper that Klingon enthusiasm.
Yeah, maybe. Well, that was the only thing I had in my overanalysis, so I will go to women in the future. There's not a ton of stuff to say here, but of course, I didn't like the callback to season 1, Julian.
Yeah.
I didn't think we needed to bring that back. But at the same time, I fully believed that Quark would do that he would play on that insecurity that Julian has.
Oh, yeah.
At the same time, Julian, it's been 5 years. I mean, is he really going to be that easy to manipulate over something that has been over for years?
It's that story trope of the lost love.
I guess so.
Well, it wasn't even lost. It was...
No, it was not. It never happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was really all that I had in Women in the Future. So let's go to rating. Thumbs up, thumbs down, or neutral. What is your rating?
Okay, this is going to be a long one.
Oh.
Because I remember originally watching this episode, and I've watched it, time since, and it definitely isn't one of my favorite. It wasn't really up there, and I didn't think much of this episode. I thought it was kind of a throwaway. However, after the current rewatching, and then watching the wedding episode, you're cordially invited just a few weeks ago, this episode works so much better. It's one that I think I have 180'd on. Watching it again with some appreciation for the relationship between the two, and maybe paying more attention to the Klingon Heart story, I have gained a new appreciation for it. And I actually really enjoyed it. I thought it worked really well. Yeah, there was a lot of elements of the story that were kind of, if you like, forcing it. But I think if you look at it as a whole and kind of where the story was trying to go, I think it worked, and it worked really well. Absolute 2 thumbs up.
Well, that was unexpected. There were many times this week where I hadn't yet finished watching the episode and you were implying that you had a lot to say and it didn't sound positive. So I was quite convinced you were going to come in with a thumbs down to the episode.
I hope I did not influence you.
No. I found this episode hard to watch for the reasons that I said earlier. As you sort of watch Dax get sicker and sicker, it was hard to watch.
Agreed.
And I don't ever really like the stories where someone has to decide between protecting a loved one and doing something for duty, because I would never do it for duty. I would always protect my loved one. So I find it hard to watch.
I'm going to say I would do the same thing.
I appreciate that. So I wasn't sure what we were getting into anyway when we got to the rating here. I would also give it a thumbs up. I didn't think it was a great episode. I do think there were moments that were forced, but I respect what they were trying to force and what they were trying to show us.
Yeah.
And I thought that ending scene with Sisko was tremendous.
Yes. Absolutely agreed.
It was almost like the whole 45 minutes before were just to get us to that moment. And I thought that was really good. And I kind of liked the stuff with Julian and Miles, apart from flashing back to what was going on in season 1 with Julian. I liked the rest of it. I liked that Quark kind of manipulated them and had the last laugh.
Yeah.
But I was really shocked in the end that they didn't play again and Julian won. In fact, when the episode ended, I was like, really? I thought for sure that was coming back, and maybe it still will.
Yeah.
But no, overall, it was not a great episode, but I'm with you. I enjoyed it.
I like to come back to an episode that I didn't really rate and then rewatch it and reevaluate it and go,
with new eyes.
Okay, this is actually good.
Yeah.
This is enjoyable.
It's harder when something you thought was good is terrible when you rewatch it. And like you see how insulting it was to women, or maybe, you know, there's something homophobic or something racist in it. And you're just like, oh my God, how did I not know that? But I like it a lot more when you watch it and go, oh, hey, this is pretty good. This is pretty good. I really liked the tie-in back to the vows from the wedding ceremony, because obviously I loved the wedding ceremony. I say, obviously, if you listen to that podcast, you will hear I really like the wedding ceremony. I don't in general like wedding ceremonies, but I really like that. And I like the tie back to the beating heart. I thought that was really cool.
Avery's short performance at the end there was so outstanding. And so why I love his portrayal of Sisko. You could still feel the pain of Jennifer's loss.
For sure. And it's funny that of the captains, at least of the captains that I've watched, I didn't watch much of Enterprise, so I can't speak to Archer. Sisko is really the most emotional of them.
Maybe this is another over-analysis point. I think it's because typically captains in Star Trek are the stoic leader. Janeway, Picard, Archer.
Not so much Kirk. He was highly emotional.
They are these, if you like, almost emotionless characters to an extent, because they need to be for their role. And what we see with Sisko is a much rounder person. And this comes back to Sisko is a political player. He's also a leader and also a military man. So he's a different kettle of fish compared to, and it sounds bad for them, but I don't mean it that way, or just the captain of a starship.
Well, he's been through a lot emotionally already before he got to this point.
Yeah.
Whereas we saw Picard, for example, his most emotional, difficult thing that he went through was probably when he was assimilated.
Yeah.
And so maybe Sisko comes in already with a little bit more baggage and a little bit more emotion than the rest of them.
Yeah, you're probably right.
All right, that wraps up Season 6, Episode 16. Come back next week for Episode 17. In the meantime, if you'd like to send us your own over-analysis of this or any episode, or if you just want to say something nice, you can email us at ReBingeIT@gmail.com or tweet us at ReBingeIT. We're also on Instagram and YouTube at ReBingeIT. You can check us out on TalkThroughMedia.com. You can leave feedback there for individual episodes, and you can also listen to the other podcasts in our network.
Thanks for joining us on the ReBinge Deep Space Nine podcast.
That's it for me.
And that's it for me.